Welcome to the TPLC Educational Talk Show. I'm Danny Thompson, introducing this broadcast featuring TPLC founder and director Melenie Hibbert as a guest on the TrustMeRadio.com talk show Talk De Ting. Talk De Ting is a discussion show hosted by TheSpirit and Jennisis. The topic of discussion centered on education within the black community. So kick back, relax, and enjoy this enlightening conversation featuring Melenie Hibbert of TPLC.
The Primary Learning Center.
I'm a teacher, mainly in primary schools, but I also work with parents doing coaching and empowerment with their children, helping them to access various educational services as well as to access their own inner strength and belief in what it is that they do.
Okay, lovely. And how long have you been doing that?
I've been teaching for now 13 years.
A long time.
So on, 13 odd years and things. So, a lot of experience in the classroom, a lot of experience of seeing what's happening with our children and what's happening with our parents and how things are working in the current system.
So you definitely
certainly from primary school going upwards. Oh, without a doubt. But then some things are always stay the same and unfortunately don't change.
No. What I wanted to know is, as a primary school teacher, because I don't tend to work with the younger ones, they bore me, and professionally they do, they bore me. But so I work with secondary school. That's the age group that I was working with. But I've oftentimes wondered, and I do know the answer to this, but I'm going to allow Melenie to actually, and you hear the way I say Melenie. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to allow
just
her.
Say Mel.
Basically, I don't believe that, and I work with females, I don't believe that a female reaches year 7 and then goes ballistic. I think there's a trail that if we were to look closely within primary school, there are indications that gives us reason to understand where a child might end up being excluded by the time they get into year 9. So what I'm asking you to do, or what I'm asking you to do, Mel, is give me, and this show is Talk De Ting. This is information shared about the black community with whoever wants to listen. So that it's not just aimed at the black community. This show is actually aimed at as anyone who's interested in the issues within the black community, but it is to uplift and to impart information. So my question to you is, in your experience as a primary school teacher, what are some of the aspects or some of the difficulties that you have teaching children of colour?
Wow, that's a huge question. And first of all, to start off, is that I started in primary school because my belief was that actually when children get to secondary school, they're a lot harder to reach. Not saying that it's impossible to reach them, but they're a lot harder to reach, and that actually if you can get them while they're young, actually, and sow the seeds of positivity and forwardness when they're young, then actually you set them up for a much better ride in secondary school sort of thing. So that was my reason for going into primary school. And I have to say that actually it wasn't until I became a teacher that I was like, wow, why are these people having children? I just know, I know that sounds really strange, right? But it wasn't until actually starting working as a teacher and encountering what our children are dealing with, and seeing that actually, a lot of them are raising themselves, and and you just think, well, why was you brought into this world if you're not going to be looked after? Why do you have children if you're not going to cherish them and raise them to the best of your ability? Because it is amazing when you see the things that happen to our children in school, our young people in school, and that's inflicted by their parents, So in terms of black families, we have black parents, we have the full spectrum there. So you've got ones that...
Hello? Can you keep still, please?
Yeah,
sorry.
Keep the mic.
Oh, sorry. So you have the ones that are absolutely there 100% for their children. They attend every parents meeting, fully supportive, help with the work and so forth. That's the likes of us and our children, that's how we do it. And then you have ones that are just not there at all. I've had children in my class that all now I couldn't tell you what their parents look like.
Oh, that's a shame, people.
Do you know what I mean?
I hope that's not
and
one of you.
And they're going through whatever changes or going through their exams and their SATs and things, and all now to this day I couldn't tell you what their parents look like. And so there's that element of, when you have then behavior issues and so forth and things, it's like those are the kind of things that you have to look at as like what is happening at home, what's going on in that area.
Definitely.
And there's usually so much going on at home that when they come to school, the school is their safe haven.
Yeah.
I mean, I being in secondary, I find exactly the same thing. Like the Spirit said earlier, the behavior doesn't start going haywire when they get to secondary school. It starts way before that. And that is my concern because, again, I see a number of children raising themselves. There's parents that I have never seen before in my life. I have children turning up to parents' evening themselves. And there's not even another guardian. There's not an aunt, there's not an uncle, there's not somebody, there's not even an older sibling that is there to represent that particular child. And it hurts me to see that in secondary school. So, and I think that's the reason why I stayed clear of the primary. I agree with exactly what you said about, trying to catch them when they're young and hoping to, sow the seeds at that point. My thing is though, and I see this in secondary, is that you can be sowing seeds for so long and that seed doesn't take hold anywhere, because as soon as they go home, and I don't know if
it gets plucked out again.
It gets they come back the next day and you're starting all over again, doing exactly the same thing, trying to feed it back in, and then they go home and the same thing happens again.
Well, yeah, but I'd also say that I have had many of successes where actually the child has been able to maintain what it is that they've gotten.
Yeah,
from
I was
us
going to say
and
that.
so forth. And even though things may not be great at home, that they for themselves can see that they're bigger than that. There's more for them in their future than that, and they can hold on to that. They're able to see past their circumstances and recognize that actually they've got greatness within them. And that's one of the reasons, that I started my company, the Primary Learning Centre, and kind of wrote the book about empowering our children's mindset to be able to look beyond the circumstances that they're in and to actually recognise that if they can find the greatness within them, if they can recognise that they can achieve whatever it is that they set their mind to and go for it, then no matter what's happening around them, they're able to reach forward and pull themselves forward and create something much better for themselves. And yeah, that has been happening. There's been children that go home and educate their parents, and that's the thing to do. You've got to keep on sowing these seeds in the hope that it will take root, in the hope that they can go home and then further enlighten their parents about what it is that they've learned and what it is that they're going to be, and even become that role model for their children. And especially that's even more effective when you've got families that have more than one language in their family, so they've got a second language that they speak. So sometimes the parents will come and say they've just come from, I don't know, a French-speaking African country or one of those things, and they have difficulty at communicating, so you do it via the child, right. And it's in that ability that you're able to also sow those seeds as well.
It just feels like such a huge responsibility to place on a child.
It does, and it's not ideal, but yeah. I can understand in some of those instances where, and I can, as Mel was talking about it, I can visualize that there are cases where English is the second language, yeah. And the child is taking that predominant place. Sometimes it works effectively. Other times, as what Jen's saying, that the pressure on the child can actually go the other way, yeah. Go the wrong way. And that's when they end up in my court. They end up with me, yeah. Because it's got, what the pressure that they feel as a child with that responsibility is a bit much. Now, I had one mother just recently saying to me that she hasn't got any money. And I'm saying, well, what happened to your money this week? And she goes, oh, well, her child spent it on one of those console games. I think it was a PS4, something like that. Spent the whole week's money on the PS4, and I said, and I was saying, well, how do you get the money? He's 16 years old, but 16 in year 11. Okay. And he manages the family's finances. You hear me, people?
What?
He's 16. You know what I mean? In my head, I didn't say it, but in my head, I was thinking him just for spending money.
How is he managing the family's finances? How that work?
I know, but you know, sometimes
Even at school, he's being educated. He's learning maths. Maybe that's what it is. You know, maybe they don't have that. Maybe they don't have the wherewithal to actually manage it themselves, and they've handed the responsibility to the child.
And he had, you know, he's 16 now, and I'm finding out now, but he has been managing the money for some time.
The Primary Learning Center.
I want to read something before bringing Melanie back in again. This is a lovely poem. It's called "'Cause I Ain't Got a Pencil" by Joshua T. Dickinson. I woke myself up because we ain't got an alarm clock, dug in the dirty clothes basket 'cause ain't nobody washed my uniform, brushed my hair and teeth in the dark 'cause the lights ain't on, even got my baby sisters ready 'cause my mama wasn't home, got us both to school on time to eat us a good breakfast. Then when I got to class, the teacher fussed 'cause I ain't got a pencil. Now, you know, it's when I read that, it resonated with me deeply because I, again, you know, through the work and on a Monday, I remember I had one particular one that I was doing the program with for 12 weeks. And every Monday I used to see him. And every Monday's shirt was dirty.
Yeah.
It's Monday.
Yeah.
It's Monday. You know, how can your shirt be dirty? And I would see him, not at the end of the day. I would see him in school around about 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock. His shirt was dirty. It was unironed. BO
is coming out like no one's business.
Yeah, he was a young boy, so he was just on the tips of puberty. But, you know, he just looked living scruffy. Absolutely scruffy. And he did say, when I saw this, because dug in the dirty clothes basket, and that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask you, Mel, is that are you seeing cases like that where children are basically just getting themselves ready in the morning and coming to school?
Yeah, I have to say yes. That is the truth. There are, and even more so when they've got siblings, like you said, the siblings. You've got older children in year 6 that are picking up, or even year 5 that are picking up their younger siblings in year 2s and 3s and so forth, and doing the same thing. You've got that is just a classic of what is happening, and that you know, that is, it's not to say that that's across the board everywhere, but you know, you can guarantee that in every school somewhere there is going to be a little group of children that are exactly
pretty
that
much,
you know,
because that resonated so much with myself as well. I had this is some years ago, I had a year 7, and he was exactly this, waking himself up, no clock, mum is in bed after having whatever it was that she had the night before. Sometimes the parents are on drugs. Baby sister, he was getting up in the morning, he was having to change her nappy, get her breakfast done, drop her off to nursery. All this time mum is in bed. Whatever mum is suffering with, he wasn't able to articulate what was going on for her. But his day started at 5 o'clock, so by the time he actually got to school and for the day to start at 8:20, 8:30, he was knackered. And he was also a child, and I use the word very loosely, that apparently suffers from ADHD, because I just believe that doesn't really exist. But he was also a child that suffers from ADHD, but his behaviour, his erratic behaviour, wasn't because of any ADHD.
He's tired.
The child is knackered. You know what I mean? The child, and a very, very bright child, it was so tired. And we literally had to do a referral for this young man to find out what was going on.
When you say referral, explain.
When I say referral, we had to... It was a concern. It was a concern that this was what this boy was doing every single day. It was almost barring on the neglect of not only him, but also his sister. So we had to go in front of the Senko for it to be investigated to see whether or not social services need to be involved in this case.
Okay. And you know, both of you have had regular conversations with me regarding this. And Mel knows, you know, I believe teachers teach, and everybody else get on with the rest of the jobs that they do. Okay. This is what I believe that teachers are supposed to be doing. Now, what really, really annoys me is the time that schools take to do something. You know, they start they localize their concerns within the school without actually going directly to social services. That referral shouldn't even be going to Senko. It should be going directly to social services.
Then the Senko is the person that is in contact with social services and so forth.
Yeah,
but
I get
that's
that.
the protocol for the school. And let me just get this straight as well. We don't just teach as teachers. Unfortunately, that's no longer the case. We are mother, father, social worker, nurse, everything else that is going on. We're everything in that respect, you know.
But that's the bit I don't agree with.
No, I totally,
irrespective of that's the role that you're playing, I don't agree with it.
There are many schools that have, you know, various counselling services that come into the school now, such as I won't even name them, but they've got various counselling services that come into the school. People and some
of
actually
the schools have got their own counselling service based within the school.
Yeah, and people actually do have that as well, have their own specific counsellor within the school that is employed by the school to do those sort of things. But it is the Senko's job to then make contact, because they are child protection officers along with the head teacher, and so everything's got to go through them in that sense, and then it gets passed on to social workers. And I have been to case conferences with some of my children previously, and gone to, you know, met with the social workers and talked about and met with parents and have that, and that's part of the role that I do in terms of parent coaching as well, to ensure and assist them in getting their children to school and raising them in a way that they are whole and well-rounded children, you know. So but like I was saying, you know, we have to be, we wear all hats as teachers, and even as we're teaching, we're mindful of those things. So that particular poem, as I said, you know, I think I shared that on my business page as well, saying as teachers we have to be aware of all of these things that are impacting our children from learning when they come, you know. And it's not just about special educational needs and stuff, it's these sort of things that have the greatest impact on their learning, and then that further impounds the idea of that they can't do something, you know, because all of these other pressures that are on them that affects their mindset and so forth, and you know, they get into the place, well, this is my life, however, how am I ever going to achieve anything of greatness, or even, you know, just standards to the point where they're surviving, because that's all they're doing is literally trying to survive and to ensure that their younger ones are looked after as well, you know, in that sense too.
I get that. I'm going to go back to the point and focus on that. In my head, teachers are supposed to teach. Yes, you are supposed to be aware of anything that may impact upon a child's learning, but I think if we get caught up as teachers doing a lot of the jobs that other professions should be doing, it takes away from the other children that are also there to be taught as well.
The thing you have to also remember is that because we are in the schools and because we are in the forefront, we're getting to see all these things. At the end of the day, there's going to be kids that will slip under the net if teachers, because kids spend so much of their time in school. So, and I was just speaking to somebody earlier on this evening, and you start to realize that, you know, you can spend more time with kids than you spend with your own inside the school. And because you are at the forefront, you see a lot of the stuff that's going on, a lot of the stuff that is being missed by even some of the other professionals that are out there.
Well, they would do, because as you said, that they're in your presence.
Right.
Okay.
So therefore, because they are in our presence, that is the reason why we get the insight to actually see what's happening. We also get the opportunity to speak with that child just to find out what's going on with you today. Why are you sleeping at your desk? What is going on? What's happened before you come into school? And with that information, then we are able to do something with it. If we don't take the time out to have those conversations or to be alert about what's going on with the kids that's now been placed in our care, then they'll just go missing.
No, you see, I think.
So how would they ever get picked up if we're not?
No. Let me explain. Hold on, before you come in, Mel. Let me explain again. Okay, because there's the issue that I have, and I'll say it again, is that when I say teachers are there to teach, and yes, you do have to have an awareness of what a child might be going through outside of the school, and you are right, you are best placed there. My problem is I think it's localized too long. I think the investigations within the school goes on too long. Okay, there is something under the legislation called a Section 47. No one in the school can actually action that. And this is the point I'm making. By the time, and this is being in my experience, by the time we got a referral, something should have been happening a long time ago. Intervention should have been happening a long time ago. And I think it's not so much the actions that schools takes. I think it's the duration of time that they use before moving that outside of the school.
I also think, though, I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree with what you're saying with that. And I know from my perspective, like when I've flagged something about a child that they're in my class, and I've brought it to my Senko, and I brought it to my Senko. Sorry, my sister's just made me laugh. Yeah, but and I brought it to my Senko, and the time that it takes to then follow through on that next action. Sometimes the school's hands are tied because of the procedures that they have in place, and then also making contact with the council and the social services within that, and then arranging the meters and getting all things in place. It can be a long drawn out process, and in the meantime, I'm the person. And me and the child is like trying to work these things out, and then I'm talking with the parents, and we are actionably doing stuff while that process is being is you know what I mean.
How long
so
would
we
you
have
say?
to
Give an
keep on.
indication. How long?
It really does depend also on the severity of the case in terms of what's going on, you know, because if it's just an inkling that you suspect something's going on, then the investigation process in itself can take a while, you know, before you get to the hard facts, before it gets then passed on. But then other times when you can clearly see that and it's blatant, the evidence is there, what's happening, that does happen quite quickly in those cases. Do you know what I mean? When there is, without a question of doubt, that this child is being abused or so on and so on, without a question of doubt, those move fast.
Yeah, but you see, you've just said it. In those cases, it moves fast. You can bypass the process or the protocols or whatever is in the school to get to the social services or the children's services that's needed at that point. When there is an inkling that something's wrong, I think maybe that there are going to be times where action could have been a bit speeded up. No, inkling, if there's an inkling, there's a concern. If there's a concern, there's an action. And I think it's the what that action looks like to me that I have the greatest concern with. What does that action look like? Is it the investigations throughout the school? Is it in a timely manner? And remember that every day that's delayed in getting support for this child and this family is another day that's impacted upon this child and this family. So that's why, and I have been in what we would call referral and assessment, and you do get an idea, and then sometimes when the question is asked, how long has this been going on? Because we have to then decide what action needs to be taken in RNA, and whether or not there is court action on that day, day. And sometimes what we do find, we found is that it's been too long, unacceptably too long.
Yeah, but I also think that a part of that is, I mean, you probably find that it will vary depending on the particular Senko, because then that's where their job role becomes very, very, very important in how quickly they action, how seriously they actually take the concern that's being brought to them by the teacher, whoever it is that has spotted that there might be something wrong or has a feeling that there's something wrong. I mean, it's a huge responsibility, and you can understand why sometimes, certain professions are flagged up in the news as having failed in certain duties and responsibilities.
Because the teachers don't get the blame. At the end of the day, the teachers don't get the blame. They're the ones that could be languishing on this particular concern for the longest time. And by the time social or children's services get involved, it's become such a breakdown in stuff that it is flagged up.
Yeah, there's failings right along the way.
So I think what needs to happen is closer.
But there has been cases where teachers have got the blame in not pushing things forward in the first instance, and especially those that have resulted in death, you know what I mean, of the child and so forth, and you clearly see the impact that is having on the child within the school and so forth, and it's not been flagged up. I mean, those are the extreme cases. Those are the extreme cases kind of thing and stuff. But,
which is actually right.
I mean, I think, it's a really difficult...
It's a difficult one, because the thing is that when you're within any of these organisations, so to speak, there is so much red tape, there's so much protocol. I mean, I think that's one of the things that kind of frustrates me. And and kind of will push you towards working independently, and even within the independence, you know what I mean, you still find that you still have to be following certain protocols and X, Y, and Z. But it's frustrating because there's times where you know instinctively that this needs to be done, and the person whose responsibility it is not doing it.
Yeah, and I
so
think
where do you go then?
I think that's what it is, because within children's services there's less protocol. Yes, there is bureaucracy, but there is less protocol. There is action straight away in safeguarding a child.
Yeah.
Within the school, you have all these protocols that you have to jump over and go inside out. By that time, you see, that's the point I'm making. I think the schools have got it wrong in terms of their intervention, in terms of how quickly they can get to act. And if they can act in a serious case, if they can act on a serious concern quickly enough to get that outside intervention, they should be able to do it when you guys have less of a concern. But it's still a concern nevertheless.
I have seen where incidents have been, something has occurred and that child is removed from their home that same day, not allowed to go home, and until certain people have come, and that's when something, you know that the head teacher's made a decision, right, you're not going home, and social worker is called, and so on and so forth, and it's dealt with that evening, and in that kind of thing, and that's in its severity. But that's a hard call for the head teacher to make, unless is needed. If it's for the safety of that child, then that's exactly what they will do.
But do you understand? The head teacher has called on something that has been actioned and agreed by children's services. And that it does show good awareness, and it shows the tenacity to be able to act and work in collaboration with children's services to remove that child. Okay, because it's not. As you said, I heard the emotions coming out in removing that child or telling that child that they can't go home. And I don't want to sound hardcore or anything like that, but I'm used to that now. I'm used to it. And the reason why I'm used to it, I know,
as teachers,
as teachers, you're not, and I'm used to it, and I don't like that. I don't like when they're removed from school. I don't like it because it's such a rapid action that there is no time to try and even explain to the child. You're almost explaining en route to where we're going to be bringing them. And that's not good. Okay. So in those circumstances, I still would think that whatever the concern is has been going on for a little while. And at that particular day, it's become dreadful enough for the head teacher to say, no, you're not going home today. So I think what I'm basically saying, I know what I'm basically saying, is that I would like there be a hot number from schools straight to children's services and much more tighter collaboration. That's what I would like to see, because as Jen said, you guys spend the more time with these children at school. You see these things. You see it. Okay. And yes, you can ask that opening question. Yes, you can even follow up with the next question thereafter to decide where or not you need to be going. But what I would like is a faster reaction and a faster collaborative working with children's services, because I'm telling you, when you see the caseload that they're working with, some of these problems has become quite indigenous to the child. And as you said, Mel, that they become so used to it. So used to it. Now, this poem that Joshua done has to have been so real and happening either real to this person who wrote the poem or happening on such a scale that it warranted this poem to be made.
But the other thing with this poem, because I've read this also, that kind of got me with it, and you can go deep into it like we have just now, or you can kind of like stay on the surface and not go deeper onto it, because like you're thinking to yourself, like, this kid has gone through, and we know how it is in school. We want the kids to, you know what I mean, be prepared for school, be prepared for learning, and X, Y, and Z, and have all your equipment, and then you think about it, you know what I mean, and that shows that to me, that Joshua was saying in that poem, look, this is where I've been, this is where I'm coming from, and you're coming to tell me about pencil. You know what I mean?
Why don't
you ask me what my story is? Why don't you ask me what my life is? Do you even know if I can afford a pencil? Why are you telling me that? I mean, I could have walked 5 miles to come to school, and you want to tell me about pencil?
And there's another aspect to that poem as well. So it's not only in terms of the hardships that this child has gone through to get to school. It's more the fact that he has got there and that
Exactly.
he wants to be there,
Exactly.
and so forth. And so therefore,
Sometimes it's the only safe
open,
place.
He's open, and he's also open to learning. Not just that it's the only safe place, but he's open to learning. He's open to empowering himself. He's open to moving forward.
Sometimes
so please don't
that's all
complain
they've
about
got.
a pencil. Just give me a pencil so I can get on with it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
There is that
So
aspect.
there's that element there as well.
There is, but
You
there's
know?
also the aspect where the child has given up. But they do go to school because it is a safe place.
Well,
but they've
that's
given
what I
up
said
on the
in one of
learning.
the first things.
Yeah.
Do you know
but
what I
they've
mean?
given up on
That
the
is their
learning. It's just a safe
haven.
place to be. You know, where they don't have to go and worry about what the parent is
And they
doing
have a
or
hot meal.
not doing. Have a hot meal. Have people around to talk to. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that the learning will be affected because sometimes they might go to school because they still want to learn, and other times they've just given up.
The Primary Learning Center.
Bringing you back, Mel, in terms of what type of behavior I want to know what kind of behaviors are exhibited by children who are having a tough time.
Again, I would say that we have the spectrum of the children that are having a tough time. If you see a child that is acting out and being just unruly and disgraceful and just like they've got no upbringing going on in their in terms of their behavior, yes, that could be an indication that something's going on. Also, it can be an indication that absolutely nothing's going on, they're just bad. Yeah. Then there's an element of when you get the completely quiet ones, the wallflowers and so forth and things like that, you know,
I'll worry
as
about them
good
more.
as gold, work proficiently at what they're trying to do, really just keep their head down and get on and so forth. They also can be ones that have major issues going on.
Definitely.
And just for example, today in having a conversation with one of my year 6 children, and you know, there's two sides to this particular person. You know, there's a front that they put on, that they hold on something. But there was one occasion where I overheard a conversation which she was having with another child, and literally, you know, the child was having some issues with another friend or something. She's like, "Can't you just hold it in? Can't you just bury it? Can't you just push it down? Hold it in. Don't say nothing."
This was two children.
She was talking to another girl, but it was indicative of that's what she does.
Yeah.
In terms of dealing with her things that is going on,
down.
and have the two fronts. You know, because she comes across as a strong, confident, you know, proper brazen, and she's a tall girl as well, so she's got height on her side, and she comes across as that like that. But the fact that she was turning around and saying to another child, just hold it in, just push it down, don't make a scene, don't hold.
And this
Do
is
you know
year
what I mean?
6 people.
This-
Let me
do you know
remind
what I
you,
mean?
year
And this is what
6.
she's doing. So it's like she's been doing this for years.
Yeah.
In that kind of element, you know, she's learned how to put on that front and deal with things, but actually she's been torn up inside with things that's
Definitely,
going on,
definitely.
and it comes out in one way or another. So it's like, you know what? We need to talk. We need to sit down and talk, and we need to, you know, and make her recognize that actually, you know, you need to speak about these things because it will come out in another way somewhere further down the line, sort of thing.
Definitely.
And that's you know, that's one of the realities. You would never believe that something is going on with this child. You'd never believe it if you just, you know, was to look at how she presents herself and what it is that she does, you know. Then you've got other children that are just like proper bad and just, you know, oh my God, you know, to the point where as a teacher, I turn around and say, "Do you want me to teach you how to fly? Because I will fling you out the window." It's like, you know, it's that kind of, you know, they're so thingy. And then when you get down to the grips of it, their life's a turmoil. There's all sorts of things going on. Do you know what I mean? People in and out of their yard doing all sorts of stuff. And let's be real, you know, with in terms of, I don't want to point it as that it's always a negative aspect of what's happening at home, you know, in terms of drugs or abuse or all of them
sometimes it's just
kind of things and
chaos.
stuff. Sometimes it is, you know, that the parents are trying their best to look after their children, feed them, are working at some crazy hours, whether
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
night work or early morning work, so they can't be there for their child in that sense and so forth. And it's not because they don't love them, it's because they're trying to keep
Yeah.
their head above water. So
Yeah.
it's a mixture. It's not just pure negative in terms of
definitely.
nasty bad breed stuff going on. It's also, we're trying to survive. It's survival.
Yeah.
You know, it's survival that we're doing here, you know. In that sense, we're living from hand to mouth, you know what I mean, and you know, there's no food, there's no bread for breakfast in the morning, so you know what I mean, just go to school and see what you can work out. And you know what I mean. And we do have a couple of children that come say, "Look, I've not had any breakfast, I'm hungry," and we have to look for something to give them. Do you know what I mean, in that sense? And many a times, you know, as teachers, we'd reach in our own bags and pull out a banana and give them and so
Definitely.
forth, and them kind of things, you know. And
You
we've
start
often
all
been
buy food stupid and put it in your bottom drawer.
I'm telling you, because you know there's going to be someone that hasn't got food or is just exhausted, and actually just giving them a bit of a bit of sustenance.
Yeah.
Just sort of perks them up a bit until lunchtime, you know.
Even
and
today,
then if you're in a school, their lunch is not until like 1:45, and they come in from 1:45.
Yeah, they're hungry.
They're hungry.
Yeah. Apart from going in your bag and giving them a banana or anything, what other type of support are schools able to offer families?
Depending on the particular school, but most schools have some kind of parental service happening, in that parents are able to come in and have and talk to the teachers and talk to parent worker that's in the school, sort of thing, someone that is the liaison between the parents and the teachers and so forth and things. And that is also happening in primary schools, as well as, like I said, lots of schools have now got counselling services in the school that come in. They either come in or they have their own counsellor in on a day-to-day basis. So these type of things, pastoral care that is coming on, it's happening much more in primary school. I know it's proficient in secondary school, but it's happening a lot more in primary schools.
That's why I wanted you to come on the program, because I think it is happening on at a younger age, and I think primary schools are noticing and having to work with these social problems that affects learning. And remember, people, if your learning is interrupted, okay, at primary school level, at secondary school level, you will only do the basic and get out. That's all. And that's the child, okay? It is very hard for a child to grab itself out of the pits of despair and go on to further education. This is why we do need to get it correct from when they're born, basically. And we do need to support each other. That doesn't matter what profession you're in. When you come across children that are of a concern to you, there needs to be somewhere of reporting it. There needs to be somewhere, and then the relevant reins have taken up where it needs to be, because that one action could actually save that child's life. And I'm not just talking about the end of their life. I'm talking about saving it in terms of giving them a goal.
Be the best that they can be.
What I want to do is now link the behavioural problems that we see in school to outside of school, because we are seeing a lot of that. We are seeing a lot. So there is a problem. There's a problem not just in secondary schools, but it goes into primary schools. It's starting off in primary school.
Absolutely. And there's an element of it is where the children don't believe they have any worth, and they have no self-worth. And so they doubt their own abilities. They doubt what it is that they can understand and are capable of. And then if they then go through school, primary school, and even more so, you know, if they come out of primary school not having achieved, say, your level, well, it was level 4s, but it's all changed now, but you know, in terms of curriculum and so forth.
Levels.
Oh gosh, what's
say that again?
Life without levels.
What does that mean? Explain
the
that.
levels that we used to do in terms of assessing the children and ascertaining where they are and so forth. There's no longer using a leveling system, sort of thing. So schools are now trying to work ways of assessing the children and making sure that, you know, they reach the targets that they're supposed to be reaching and so forth. So when you have a child that's got a lack of self-worth and lack of self-belief, and you know, they become quite blasé and blatant and not really caring about what it is that they do, and this then is taken outside of school, out onto the roads and so forth, and where they have a complete lack of self-worth for themselves, that then is then projected onto other people. So this is how you get people, as they grow and go into secondary school, this is how you get them taking each other's lives for the sake of £10 or £20, because there's no value there, you know, and that's how it's been. And
they don't have any value.
And you've got to bear in mind that children's self-belief and mindset is formed in primary school, at that primary school
formative
age.
years are 0 to 6
are, you know, exactly. And then further on into, so you've got 0 to 6, and then you've got that primary age of 6 to 11, where they're actually then really sort of their beliefs are being,
if they
compounded,
have
compounded and further, like,
if it's there in the first place. So if between the 0 to 6, 0 to 6, if you've got none, by the time you get to 6 to 11, you're building on none. So if you got in 0 to 6, if you got good, then 6 to 11, there's a fair chance that it will continue to be good. But even we're seeing 0 to 6 good. We're seeing some very good parenting at 0 to 6. We're seeing at 6 to 11, we're seeing that there's some kind of problems that's starting now. This is outside of the home. This is outside of the control of the home. This is now where the social aspect starts to come in. Okay. And then from 11 to 16, you're whatever that level was. So if it was pretty bad, not too good, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. So we then see the kind of deprivations that we see on the street now. So, it's not always that the home is a bad place. There are other factors that introduced into the child's life that comes along. Now we are seeing more and more, and I'm sorry, people, that I don't have the young guy's name, the young man's name, but he's one of the latest one to die on another, what they call black on black crime. Now, when you go back into his life story, he comes from a loving family. He was an aspiring young man. There was nothing in his daily day that suggested that there was any kind of affiliation to anything negative. Now, he could be caught in a crossfire. He could have been just picked on simply because he is a good person. It could be all manners of. So, it kind of like, what's that thingy? That's that saying. Beggar you do or beggar you don't, or whatever, something like that. You know what I mean? And whether you do or you don't, you still, it's just a turn of the dice now with young people. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, just to further on what you were saying, there is a book that was written by a Neil Myers, who is a maths teacher in secondary school, and it's called Gifted in Primary, Failing in Secondary. And that is very much what it's talking about. Exactly what you were saying. They go through that age of 0 to 6 where things are going well. Then in even primary school, sometimes they're in that gifted element. But what happens when that transition from primary school to secondary school? What happens there? And that is a massive jump that happens. But then if they don't come out of primary school gifted, what's determined to be gifted, if they come out failing or behind in that sense, then what happens to them then in secondary school? Because they're forever playing catch up, forever feeling as if they've got no self-worth, forever feeling that they're unable to, so then fall into different areas and different things that doesn't necessarily bring the best out in them.
The Primary Learning Center.
Can schools also be responsible for the failings of young black boys?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Well, it's institutional racism and that's happening in lots of schools, and even as teachers we face that, as black teachers, in some of the schools we face that institutional racism. There's that preconceived idea that this particular, especially our black boys, do you know what I mean? And when I'm teaching my black boys and they're carrying on and say, well, I pull them to one side, and I whisper in the air, listen, you is a young black boy, and the stereotypes that are going to be piled on you is not even funny. Exactly. Fix yourself up. I have to talk to them like they're my child. That's right. Do you know what I mean? And
street talk.
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you.
Remember Mr. Bland?
Dropped some lingo. Yes.
Mr. Kempadu. We were fortunate to have black teachers.
On them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, don't ramp.
Yeah.
Don't mess around. Recognize that you as a young black boy that is easily going to fall into these things if people aren't already looking at you, sir. So you cannot be afford to be doing these things, and it's a shame. It's a shame that we have to talk this way to our children, but we've got no choice, and we have to save them. We've got no choice.
As a community,
do you know what I mean? And this is why I don't know if you saw I think it was last night or the day before, I posted on the Primary Learning Centre about homeschooling. And how our black children are doing so much better in terms of homeschooling, and the main reason for that is
because they're out the system.
Well, love and high expectations.
They're out the system.
Do you know what I mean? But it's more to do. It's like the love and high expectations, because you would be surprised at when you know that the person, your teacher, has high expectations for you, expects you to do well, that there's nothing else that's going to happen, and it's done with love, as much as it's different, the love of a parent in that sense, but it's done with like that I have got utmost belief in what it is that you're doing, and I don't expect anything less from you. what that brings about in the child is that they actually strive for that. Because they believe.
Yeah.
And what's happening in terms of institutional racism, and the thing is, like, you know, and especially of them young white teachers and so forth that may have those
the Australian ones.
Oh my gosh, do you know what I mean? That have their own preconceived ideas, and you know, like you said, they don't believe that they are racist in that sense, but it's that preconceivedness that's going on with them. It's not necessary to say that they're racist, but they're prejudiced. They've got their own things because of just the way that they were raised. You know, they don't have the, what do you call it? What was you saying on the last week's show about white people not necessarily feeling that they're racist, but they have that privilege and they know they don't know.
They benefit,
they benefit from it in that kind of thing. So, you know, you've got that. They have to contend with certain teachers out there, and there are teachers that say, "Oh no, we don't like that." I think, but it comes out. It comes out through their pores. Do you know what I mean?
And if you see as teachers,
pause.
Obviously, the children will see.
And there's many times it's like I've watched and thinking, and then I've had to pull the child aside and say, "Hey, well, listen, no. I heard what that teacher has said to you, but no, you're better than that." And we're going to do better than that.
Because like you find yourself like, you know, you don't want to go against your colleague, you don't want to speak against X, Y, and Z. But there's been many a time I've had to say to them, listen, you know who is for you and who's against you. Yeah. So when you don't want to carry on in a certain way, and like I had to pull up some kids today because I had to make them recognize, you know, like even there's times like we know the system is not set up to really support our young black kids. It's not, the system is not for them. The way the system is not designed for them. And one of the things I have to try and get into their head, and I've got to be careful about who's listening. But you know, one of the things that I had to try and get into their head, you know what I mean, today, because like the thing is all right. Let me just give you an example. I was speaking to one particular child, and I was covering their class just for a bit because the teacher had gone out, and the teacher was it was a white teacher that was in front of them, and when they were in front of him, you know, the class was going well. It was doing X, Y, and Z. Now, as soon as he left the room, it was almost like their signal to behave like little hooligans. And as soon
as the teacher left the room.
Yeah, as soon as the teacher left the room, you know what I mean? It was like almost a signal for them to behave in a certain way. But regardless of whether the teacher left the room, there were still two other teachers in there of colour in the room. And I looked at them and I stopped I literally just said, hey, listen, stop.
Paint the picture again. Let me just get this. So there was 3 teachers.
So there's 3 teachers in the room, okay? And like the main teacher in the room is a white teacher who's basically popped out for a second and left the other teacher of colour in charge. Now I've come in at one point. So when the white teachers left the room, the kids when the white teacher was in the room, the kids were predominantly well behaved, they were getting on with their work, they were listening to the instructions, they were following what to do. When that teacher left the room, it was almost like a signal for them to start misbehaving. And I sat there and I was watching this for a while, and I was watching the black teacher trying to control the class. Till in the end, and it wasn't a totally black class. There was white kids and Puerto Rican and Spanish, and there's a mixture of kids in the class. But I found myself saying to them, it's really upsetting to see that you kids, one, you need to know who's for you and who's against you. And because that particular teacher, and I'm jumping, but I'm going to speak about this particular boy that I had to pull to one side and literally tell about his skin, which I had to put in that language because I knew that he understood what I was talking about. Because I was saying to him, it's really strange how when the white teacher was in front of you, you were listening to his instructions, you were following what he was saying. But why was it necessary for the black teacher to even call anybody in to deal with you? That person had an understanding of what you was about, where you was from, the experiences that you're going through. But you felt that that person was your brethren, even though that person was your teacher and was older than you and was the person that was in charge of you at that particular time. But you felt that you could behave in a way that gave that where you basically gave gave the authority that teacher had over you at that particular point in that particular situation over to somebody else who didn't understand nothing about you. It didn't make sense to me. Why would you humble yourself to the white teacher, but when the black teacher who is there supporting you, guiding you, directing you, and even doing things for you that the white teacher wouldn't have any knowledge of doing, you chose not to listen.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, are you coming at this with an adult brain? Because I'm not quite sure a child would actually do that. And the reason why I even think in such a psychological way, and the reason why I'm saying that, remember Mr. Scaife?
I remember.
No, put your mouth to the mic. You remember Mr. Scaife?
I remember that. Should we have to call his name?
Yeah, we can. Okay. Now, Mr. Scaife was a black man.
He was. But
He was a black
soft.
man. You see, that's the point I'm going to make. We didn't see him, all the teachers at the time, whether they were for us or not for us, except for the science teacher, the one with the Laskovich. Except for Mr. Laskovich was just blatant in your face. We didn't see or feel any adverse reactions from teachers in a racial way. It wasn't so much in a racial way. We didn't feel it. If we were going to be naughty, we were going to be naughty irrespective of whether you were black or whether you were white. And the scene that you just painted in terms of the teacher going outside, I remember our class doing something similar like that.
Well, listen, children, let me tell you,
just
oh
do
gosh,
that, don't
children do that. Children do that. So the minute the teacher is offset, now I will say this, so, and I totally get where you're coming from in that respect, because when it's teachers and TAs that the children know that work for the school and so forth, that shouldn't be happening. There should be a level of respect for everybody that's in the school. And truth be told, yeah, it shouldn't be happening when a supply teacher comes in. But you know, with the children, them, at the minute a supply teacher is like, whoop, whoop, whoop. We're going to do our thing. Do you know what I mean? And there's an element. And even though they know that when their teacher come back, they're in for it.
Yeah.
They're no business. They're going to ramp. Do you know what I mean?
But isn't it the same at home though? Isn't? Oh God, I keep banging my head. Sorry.
Yeah. And so it's you know, they're going to do the same thing to a degree. And you've got some children that will never do it, but those that can see opportunity to ramp, they're going to ramp. They're going to ramp. And the difference as well. So for example, the difference with say the black and the white teacher is that the black teacher might tell you some lingo when they come in and put down, whereas the white teacher will hold it in a completely different aspect, but still maintain the authority. Do you see what I mean? And sometimes, you know, so for example, I know my children, they don't like it when I have to talk to them hard, because they know that it feels like it's their mother talking to them, because and you know what I mean.
And I suppose Jen's children probably feels the same
in that element. You see what I mean? And then when the say my white colleague might do the same, it's just like. Sorry, you can't see the face that I'm pulling.
No, they can't see, Val. They can't see.
Basically, she had her eyes wide open and her eyebrows were raised.
Like to say, well,
do you know what I mean? But when it's me, it's head down. It's like, oh, I'm gonna be careful. I'm gonna get boxed.
Yeah,
in that kind
but
of way.
I think isn't that it? Isn't that it? Isn't, because you know people relate to different people differently.
Yeah.
So children do the same, don't they? They already size up, and remember these nuances and cues happen from when they're babies. So they can tell whether or not when they can pull at your heartstring and who they can pull at the heartstring and play up. And I don't actually think that actually goes away. It just lessens as they get older. They know how to work it. So I think like in a like, you know, if I'm out at a door and it's home time for some of the children that's coming home, I don't always look at a particularly rowdy bunch of children as being naughty. I don't. I see them as being high-spirited teenagers and doing much the same as we did. And remember, the number 2 and the number 2B did not like stopping at the bus stop. And we had to catch the bus at the traffic lights. We were a girls' school, people. We were a girls' school, okay? And yet the bus did not. It could empty like nothing. Yeah, and it would deliberately try and just go right past the stop that we're standing at, and then we'd have to go and catch it. Anyhow, it got stopped at the traffic lights. That's it. And it's the open bus. It's the open bus.
The red route bus, doing it with the back open. You'll just jump on.
So you just jump on it.
And then
you just jump on. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, sometimes I think what we do have to do is even check our own emotional references, where we're and how we're understanding something. Okay.
To climb the mountains and cross the sea.
Do you find, not just with black children, do you find that children generally respond differently to you guys as black people? Yes or no?
I don't know. I think for myself, I think the kids respond to me. And I think it's whether or not, I don't know if for them the colour comes into it. If I'm looking at it from that point of view, I suppose it's pretty much like similar to the scenario that I was just painting a little while ago, where you kind of mentioned about the child not necessarily responding, recognizing that they were responding in that way because the teacher was black or white. I think it's the same thing that kind of applies in this scenario here. I think they respond to whoever it is that they deem to show some care or some nurture or some love even towards them, and has an expectation that that child will do well. Because I find that I get positive responses from Black, white, Chinese, Indian. It doesn't matter.
Do you think it's because of you, the person?
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
I think they respond to me as a person rather than me being a Black female or me being
Okay.
X, Y, and Z.
So, do you think, as a Black female in a city school, that you can affect positive change with Black children? Because if we think about identity. If we keep along the lines of identity, and we didn't have that in our schools really. We had Mr. Scaife, okay, further on down the line. But I was myself and Mel was fortunate enough to have Mr. Bland and Mr. Kempadu in primary school.
Yeah, I had three Black teachers in primary school.
So and not many people had that experience because they weren't British born either. They came with their culture.
Yeah.
So we were enriched with their culture.
Yeah.
Our assemblies were enriched with their stories of Anansi and everything else. Now, that, as much as we did not recognize not so much just the importance, but the privilege that we had in primary school, having these two teachers, as much as we didn't recognize the privilege, we took it for granted. Now, what I'm asking you both is, what type of changes, because I think it is important that Black teachers are in schools to reflect the children. So how can we use you guys positively?
Well, my experience is that actually me being a Black teacher does make a difference and does have an impact on how children respond. And I guess I'm also fortunate that I'm in a school a lot where actually the staff is very multicultural. We've got many Black teachers, many Black TAs as well, and the Black people in the school are not just the cleaners, so there is definitely a positive impact that we have on our children in the fact that they can look up and look around and see us in all dimensions and see us everywhere in that sense, you know what I mean? So it's definitely a positive aspect within my school as well, and in lots of schools that I've been in and so forth. It's definitely a positive aspect in that, and I do think that certain children definitely respond to the fact that I am reminiscent of their parent or something like that.
So
do you know
to
what I
answer
mean?
the question, how do you feel that you are able to impact those young Black people that are in your care at that particular time? What difference do you think that you can make as a Black teacher within the school?
Well, the difference that I believe I do make within in the school is the fact that when I am communicating and talking with our children, I am constantly reminding them that actually they are powerful individuals and that they stand on the shoulders of greatness that has come before them, that I constantly advocate for them to know who they are, where they come from, what they're about, not to be fed the foolishness that's been in the curriculum. So even when I'm teaching things that are in the curriculum, I often tell them, go and do your own research, look further into this. Don't just take what's being said here, because this is this is the curriculum, this is what we have to legally cover. But let me tell you, there is all of this information, and then especially when so sometimes I get in primary school they come out with some foolishness and I have to pull up one little Black boy tell me how the pyramids is devil. And the devil thing, so he's talking Illuminati, and I just had to pull him to one side and said, listen, are we build that, you know what I mean? Are we devils? And so, you need to go deeper and further. So that's the positive impact that I have on my children, on Black children, is that no, we are much, much more than you will ever see represented in this school. We come from greatness, and this is what I can constantly tell them about, that they have to go through. So they're not even permitted to come and chat foolishness in my ears.
And I think
because that's what I'm
bring.
pulling them up on. It's like no, I don't think so. Recognize whose shoulders you stand on, recognize where you come from, know yourself, know your people.
I totally
and
agree.
if you don't, go and chat to your parents, and if your parents are not talking to you, come back to me and we will sit down and talk.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That's what I think you both bring.
But I think the thing is as well that there isn't, even though there may be a lot of us now in the education system, you know what I mean, as educators, as social workers and X, Y, and Z, you know what I mean, it's having those people that are willing to take that step and go further. Because what it is, what I find as well, that even though there's tending to be a lot more of us in those roles that are able to enact those out, we're not there for the, yes, you want to get paid, but when you're telling the kids that you can do as you please because I'm getting my money at the end of the month anyway, that is not the right, for me, I mean, if you're going to be in that kind of
Are you having just explain that bit. So there are teachers of colour.
There are teachers of colour, but their thing is not there to empower the child or the black child, or they're not looking to have that kind of impact like what Mel was talking about in that way. They are there basically simply to fulfill that role of that's all they come in there for.
Right, but also
they don't have time to do that extra little bit extra to come back and say to them, you know what I mean, you stand on the shoulders of this, or that you are this, or that there is this. Some of us don't do it.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I've definitely come across some teachers like that. But again, it's that same thing about in reference to, say, for example, from the child's perspective, in terms of the poem about all that they've gone through to get to school. Yeah. You then also have to look at that teacher and all that they've come through to get to that place. And sometimes some of my black colleagues are so broken down that they are so at the edge of despair and so forth that it gets to a point that's a flippant remark, throwaway remark. It's like, you know what? Whatever, I'm getting paid, that's it. Do you know what I mean? And that's because they've been broken down to that point through whatever reasons.
I hear that, Mel, but I hear that, but there's also teachers that are not coming from that place that still don't do it. You know what I mean? But
that's also comparative. Then if you're going to say that, but then that's also the same with you've. And I know we're not talking from a white perspective, but you have the white teachers that do that as well. I think that's innate of people.
We're not talking for that.
But I'm saying it's an innate of all people in certain aspects. They do that.
But the question was, how are we going to empower? And
I think you answered it. I think you both answered it.
But the point that I was also making was that there are people of colour that are not interested in doing that because their interest is in getting paid. In much the same way
and where does that mindset come from?
Much the same way in that there are people of colour that are doing the things that you do, that I do, that the Spirit does. You know, so there's a balance of that, but we also have to recognise that not everybody is in the profession that they're in for the reason that we are in it for.
Absolutely, and that's across the board.
I
and
would
like I was
say,
saying, where does that mindset? Where does that mindset come from? Do you know what I mean?
would
In that
actually
sense,
say I don't believe that teachers actually just go in to teach just for the money. So I think it's a long process to learn in and to gain in that qualification. So I don't think it's just let me just go uni for the next 4 years and just get this qualification as a teacher and I go into the school and I can't be bothered to go and do. So I think
that isn't the point that
let me just finish. Hold on. So I think there is an element of what both of you are saying to some degree. I think there's some accuracy in what you're both saying. But it is about recognizing what the problem is and what can you guys do as teachers of color? What can you do to support your one another? Come on.
That's a hard one.
I mean, there is a Black Teachers Network. You know, there is that kind of element of where people are trying to come together, and that's been going on for a while. But it is that little. It's trying to get that up to a higher level. Do you know what I mean? That Black Teachers Network in terms of supporting each other and so forth in dealing with the systems. But that's often coming from a red type bureaucracy moving up within the system, trying to work the system from inside out and so forth, and not necessarily in reference to, you know, empowering the children on the way up kind of thing, you know? So it is a very difficult, and I think it's not even that it's a very difficult question. It ties into everything that we've been talking about in terms of Black economics, doing for ourselves, creating our own structures, creating our own schools, creating our own systems and so forth. It feeds into that. Everything feeds into that. Do you know what I mean? And so the way forward is to come together as a community, as to come together as all of the professions, as to come together in building for ourselves in that sense, to be able to empower that, you know, because if you're constantly trying to get that integration, we're never going to get to that level of integration where we're equal to, because, you know, our white supremacists and so forth, it will not allow that to happen. So we do need to create for ourselves, or be content with the crap that we've got, which we're not content with.
Do either one of you think, I can't remember the name, is it John Ruskin School? Something. There's an all black school. Yes, but
that was a while ago. Was it? I don't know if it still is, but yes, there was a John. Yeah, because is it a boarding school?
I don't know. I think it
John
may.
Ruskin, the one that I know of, is not a boarding school.
Okay. There's a school. Do you think there's some kind of mileage in schools being segregated like that, in terms of there's a couple of schools just black children?
Well, I think if you look at the so if we take it to the next level, if you look at the colleges and university in America, the Brown's universities and the Morehouse and so forth and things like that, and when you look at the achievements that these young people, these adults have, because their tutors and teachers are inspiring, what's around them is putting out the fact that yes, you are great, you can do this, you can achieve, you're a success, and so on and all of that kind of thing. You know, there is a definite call for it, and this is why Dr. Uma Johnson is attempting to buy that I can't remember the name of it, but to create that for the black boys school, and it's a younger age, it's not college age, it's a younger secondary, so forth. There is definitely a place and a mileage for an all black school, and actually we're the only race that's not doing it, because there's all Jewish schools, there's all Muslim schools, there's all faith, these particular types of things and race and stuff. So we're the only ones that are not
keep going.
We're the only ones that are not actually doing for ourselves in that aspect, and perhaps
another aspect that we're not doing for ourselves.
And is it because, you know, of our history, where we've come from, that the race that's been dealt with in that kind of way, you know? So we do have to look at that. We do have to look and see,
are we strong enough? Are we strong enough as a race?
I think we're more than strong. No.
Listen to the question. Are we strong enough as a race to push for all black schools? Do you think that we have, at the moment, do you think that we have the gumption to withstand all the crap that will come at us for trying to open an all black school?
I think it depends on the strength of the person. If there's, for example, from the passion that's been coming out in this discussion just here, if we were to say, let's do this, we'd more than be able to push through it. Whether or not we'll get the support for it, whether or not, because listen, I can get a parking fine and be fighting that right the way to the High Court, right? So if I'm going to be passionate about this, I'm going to see my commitment level will be in it to 100%. And I think there are people that are committed to 100% and will withstand a load of crap that will come and prove themselves and win that thing.
Right.
But think collectively.
Collectively. That's another question.
I can't see that face.
The thing is that
see that facial mark. This is radio. See Jen talking with her face. It doesn't work because you can't see it, can you?
Oh my goodness! But yeah,
I think that some of us are strong enough to push forward and so forth, and some of us are doing it already, and there is a backlash for it, you know what I mean? And I think it was yesterday or the day before, I don't really want to publicize it too much because I don't want her fight to be out in there, although it's already in the newspaper, okay? But Enterprise Diamond School, a secondary school that's just opened up in Lewisham, although it's not a black school, so to speak, but it is predominantly black children that are there, a secondary school thing. So she has been fighting for ages to get her free school open and so forth, and has finally got it open against how many people trying to tear it down and do this thing. And all now in the newspaper just the other day, they're attempting to tear her down again. Do you know what I mean? And so, but she's standing strong, she's fighting it, and she's got everything behind her to go forward and push forward and so forth. But, you know, this is the thing. We can attempt to do that, but we have to be prepared for the fight, for the devils to come and try and tear us down in that element and pull it apart and do that thing. So, you know, you have to have strong backs and strong team around to push forward. But if anything's worth doing, it's worth doing.
And I do think that aside from everything else, in order for us to heal, we do have to retreat. I don't believe our healing can be done in this melting pot. I don't think that our sense of identity can be supported in the way that it needs to be supported in the current system that we've got now. Now, I want you both, in terms of resources, I want you both to listen to this. I quite like it. And tell me if you've got anything like this inside your schools. Anything.
All the way from Nigeria, meet Bino and Fino.
B-I-N-O, Fino! F-I-N-O, Fino!
Join the brother and sister team as they have fun learning about the wonderful continent of Africa with the help of their friends and family. Zena, the magic butterfly. Miss Zainab. Mummy. Daddy. Mama, and Papa. The Bino and Fino show teaches about African history, culture, and geography in a fun and playful way.
Empire and fascinating places like the famous city of Timbuktu that is almost 1,000 years old today.
Did you know that Benin was one of the greatest kingdoms that existed over 1,000 years ago?
Bino and Fino also learn about science, the environment, self-esteem, and much more. Introducing the wonderful range of Bino and Fino soft toys. You can buy your Bino and Fino DVDs and toys in the United States, Europe, and selected countries worldwide online. Go to binoandfino.com to shop and find out more. Bino and Fino, Africa for children.
Love it, people. I love it. And what I wanted to ask Mel and Jennisis is, I know the answer because I asked it whilst it was playing, but I'm going to ask it again for you guys to hear. Do you guys have anything like this in schools that supports not just information about children's history, but also supports the learning and development, positive learning and development of their identity?
No.
I knew the answer, but they weren't supposed to answer
not Bino and Fino, not like that. Do you know what I mean? Bino and Fino is an amazing, and and it's something that I would really be pushing forward to, like my head teacher and inclusion manager to sort of like look at this resource and bring it forward. You know what I mean?
It's a simple answer.
But no, I mean what we do have is and it's that standard of what happens in Black History Month, isn't it? And they pull out the although to be fair, like to the couple of schools that I've been in, they do sometimes go a lot deeper than
but that's just 1 month for the year.
Exactly. And but they will pull out the Black scientists and inventors books and stuff. So those are now making their way into school. I mean, they've been for a while in that. And it depends on the teachers, because it is the Black teachers that are bringing these resources in.
This is why I think you guys are important.
This is why I'm saying that I would push for that to be brought in and so forth into the school, because we are aware of the resources that can come in, when they come into the Forbian like that, to then pull it into the school. We have a unique position in that sense to say, look, this is a resource, this particular in secondary school as well. And the reason I say this is I work with a secondary school teacher in terms of literacy in my business outside of school, and she again as well brings in a lot of these type of resources. So it's about using your position in school and your influence with your colleagues to bring these resources in. And sometimes it might fall in deaf ears. It really does depend on the school that you're in. But I will find that if you're in an urban school with a nice amount of Black teachers, not just support staff, but black teachers in there, then you stand a much better chance of actually using your voice and bringing in these resources to help support our children, because especially when the school is predominantly made up of our children.
Yeah, because how are they being represented? How are they being represented in, say at your school, Jen, how are they being represented in terms of learning about their identity?
Not very well.
I'm gonna stop.
Hey, it's Talk De Ting. We are Talk De Ting. It's not very well, and unless you are somebody like myself, like Mel, like yourself. That is no, because literally there are times where you have to take it upon your own back to do it, and you're kind of doing it insidiously in a sense, because you're pushing it for. It's not part of the curriculum, but you find a way to get it into the curriculum so that you can actually get them to understand what it is that you want them to know, and not just what the curriculum is teaching them. But in terms of teaching them about their like Mel said, Black History Month, 1 month of the year. And depending on who is the one that is pushing that forward, they will depict how much information they're going to get, what they're going to take away with. Fortunately, in some of the schools that I've been into, they've had very, very good people. These are people that have studied Black history, and are they then able to not only do they teach history in school, but able to give a good aspect on, or a good talk on Black history itself in those areas. But it's not enough.
It's not. So what else can we do? I keep banging my head. All right. What else can we do as teachers in the school? Because remember, we can't give up. For me, the option is never to accept what we've got now. So what can we do?
It is just that, never to accept what we've got now and find ways of bringing it in. Because once, and I think this is the thing that I don't like with the red tape and the legislation and the policies and X, Y, and Z, because the curriculum is there. And because the curriculum is there, you're trying to work alongside the curriculum, but trying to impart what you feel that the kids need. And depending on your status within that school, and this is where, where we're having people that are, Black head teachers, Black senior leaders, X, Y, and Z, that can have that impact, that are able to make those changes, especially in the free schools, where they can put it forward. They are the ones that are in the position to do that and to filter that down, because you'll find that within most schools, how that school operates, it's going to come from the top down. And if the top is not doing it, then it's very hard for those that are at the lower end to try and push things upwards.
Yeah, I hear you.
But there's a difference of opinion. Go on.
There is an element. I do kind of agree to a certain extent, because you do have the red tape and so forth. But I come back to that saying of, do for ourselves. So why can't we put together, and some places have been doing that, but we're creating our own supplementary schools where this is then added to, where children can then go to and learn the specific history, because it's that, like you said, that red tape, that constantly fighting, trying to get it into the system and so forth. It's like, do you know what? Let's just create our own and do for ourselves as well. There's an element of that. We can push it in, we can bring parts in, and yes, it's only 1 month of the year and so forth, and we can feed some more in and things. But where parents are at the moment, sort of buying tutors or going to, say, Kumon and to Explore Learning or these different things like that, why then can we not create our own independent supplementary school that teaches not only the maths and English, but our history and other types of dynamic interactive curriculum that's available for our Black children?
Because there is a lot of that, isn't there? There are parents out there that buys additional materials in terms of learning.
Absolutely.
So the interest is there. The passion and the motivation and the commitment to children is there, definitely, from parents to their children. So, I'm thinking in terms of starting up a school, I can just see that being a really long process. What can we do with the resources? Yeah, what can we do with the resources in front of us, using the schools, not necessarily inside school time?
So after school clubs, that's what I'm talking. After school clubs, exactly. And I'm saying this now because that's a venture that both me and my business partner is currently working on, is creating that learning center, the learning hub, which allows for Black history, music, and English and maths and all of the things that's needed to empower our children, to have that as part of a wraparound care, certainly for primary school, in the sense of that after school hours, that the children are brought there and get the opportunity to explore who they are in the purest form of their in terms of their identity. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that is definitely an idea that is flowing through us at the moment, and that we're constructing to put together, because there are so many in the field that I'm in. There are so many people out there that are working separately to the same end.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Separately to the same end. And it's about trying to, did you know that we need to come together, because we're all doing our separate things around. But if we came together as a united force, as a consortium across the schools and so forth, then we'd create the impact that we're looking for.
Exactly.
Instead of being
quicker
in these small little hubs doing our own thing.
Yeah,
but again, trying to work to the same end. Yeah, absolutely.
Like the Spirit was saying a little while ago, but when we talk about creating and building, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't create and build, but again, we have to go through that process, because it could take years. We could be there for 7, 8, 9 years in the planning stage without even getting an approval on it yet. But in terms of having a quick fix, so to speak, not the best choice of words, but in terms of having a quick fix to the situation, it is to have that consortium, it is to network with each other, and it is to basically use the system that is there now in order to have that impact and have, just imagine, we're talking about urban schools where we have so many, both primary and secondary, where we have a number of ethnic minority children within those. If we worked in that way and impacted the schools in that way, how much quicker are we going to be able to reach those kids?
Yeah, I was going to ask Jem, in terms of in terms of primary school, I think that it will be less. It'd be easier to get the children involved in after school.
Definitely.
In terms of secondary schools, what do you think? What do you think in terms of the take up?
If I think about the schools that I'm currently in, I think the take up would be massive. I'm not.
Wow.
And this is coming from kids that these could be kids that are disaffected.
Yeah.
But they still want that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said that is because, like, for the last few years, I have been involved in that little 1 month Black History thing. But and usually when I do like the end of the month celebration for Black History, it's like I said, it's one whole school assembly. Like, we're talking about nearly 1,000 kids and teachers in total, and finding those resources, finding the people, finding all the information there, and that assembly that we have is like literally the last day of term. So the kids go away with that in their mind. But when they come back after the half term, the buzz is still there. They'll come back and they will show you, this is what I've looked at during the half term. This is what I'm interested in. The buzz is there. They go away and they speak to their parents. They go away and they develop their own booklets. They want to teach each other. Each one teach one, so to speak. And I just think the take up would be massive. The take up would actually be massive.
So what are we going to do about that?
We're going to do it.
We're going to do it.
We're going to talk.
We're going to talk the thing and we're going to do it.
Well, we talk it already. We're just going to go out and do it.
We're going to do. And it's a definite. And I didn't even get to bring up, but ideally, I wanted, if you can look at it for next week, Kids Company. Do you know of Kids Company?
Yeah.
Do you know of the whole
rigmarole
about that and stuff?
I never liked her.
But when you have that conversation,
Swati
because
woman.
remember, Kids Company was predominantly for disaffected black children.
I know.
And
it was
that's where
run
they
by
got
a
all of
white
them.
woman.
And it was run by a white woman
That's
that
just
had
so
the cheek to
cheeky.
turn around and say that it's needed because black mothers are letting down their black boys, are throwing away their black boys and black men.
Anyway.
And we're up to time.
No, it's not that.
What's the matter? Oh, it seems like it's just restarted again. Don't worry,
right.
we're still
so we got anyway. So yeah, perhaps next week we can discuss that and talk about that in that sense, or you can discuss that, because I don't know if I'm going to be.
Well, no, because it is something that I think you guys, you're coming from primary and secondary school, and it is about utilizing the information, the experience that you have to be able to formulate a plan to put in action.
Definitely.
Because this, the word consortium is key. It cannot be happening in one school.
No.
And just as a reminder, we used to attend after school clubs on a regular basis.
Definitely.
When we were younger.
Yeah.
If the availability was there and the interest on what that subject was, then we were there.
Yeah.
So that's why, I'm kind of like, wow. And I'm also pleasantly pleased that children in secondary schools, as Jennisis say, that the take-up rate would be high.
It would be high.
Because this is something that we need to start
I'm pleased
pressuring.
with that as well. Most
we need to start
definitely hear.
pressuring. Because if we know what the problem is, we know how we can at least go around and supporting its resolution or solution. Then we need to do something.
Definitely.
We are responsible for that, or you guys are anyway, because you.
Well, the plan is in motion. Like I said, certainly, this is an idea that me and my partner has been mulling over for a while now to see how we can action this and move it forward.
So we're gonna have to talk about that a bit more off air because we have run out of time. You've been listening to Talk De Ting with Jennisis, with The Spirit, and with special guest in the studio, Mel. I think we should give her a round of applause.
Innit? Hold on. Let's do a proper round of applause because I think she has been, I'm a sister. What else you expect, people? I'm a sister. No, man. But here we go, my girl.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Primary Learning Center, empowering our children to climb the mountains and cross the sea, be the best that they can be. At the Primary Learning Center, Primary Learning Center.
Empower your children. Visit www.theprimarylearningcentre.org.
Primary Learning Center. The Primary Learning Center.